Books and Booze, a bookish and wine-induced podcast from two book lovers who have never met. That is the power of the internet.
Hello, Jade.
God, it's been a while.
It has been a very long time.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to you.
I'm very excited today because we are recording our anticipated 2019 book releases. So there's a lot to look forward to this year.
And it's our first recording for 2019.
Woohoo!
So happy New Year, everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year. We're making this year our biatch.
Yes. That'll be the year of books and booze, huh?
Yes, it will be.
So what are you drinking today?
Mark, he's just buggered off on his Harley Davidson, and he poured me a little glass of white wine that was left over in the fridge. But once this is done, I'm switching over to a Shiraz by McLaren Vale. It is called Blood Brothers Republic. Oh. It is a 2016 vintage, and I haven't tried it yet, but I will let you know when I crack open the bottle and have my first sip.
I was going to say, we switched today because I'm drinking
red. Red?
Yes, because I'm at my mum and dad's house. Their dad pretty much only drinks red. So
Italian.
Yes. This is what is it? I took a picture of the label. Dune Ridge Setting Gun. Syrah Cabernet from WA.
Very nice. How funny. We've literally hit the new year and we've changed over. You're drinking red and I'm drinking white.
Yeah, new me.
Okay, so let's dive right into it then, and we'll talk about the rest of our crazy lives and boozy banter later. Today, we are going to talk about our most anticipated 2019 book releases, and we've chosen 5 each, so you start.
And I think we picked some runners up because 5 is really hard. There are some amazing books coming out.
I know. It's an exciting year in the book world.
Okay, so I'll start. I did from 5 to 1, so I left my most anticipated read for last.
Ah, okay. Awesome.
So the first one, I wonder if we have any overlaps. So the first one I picked was The Lost Night by Andrea Bartz.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
So 10 years after Eddie's shocking suicide, her best friend learns more about what really happened that night. The Lost Night has some of the best plot twists you'll read all year long. So I picked that one because I am really craving something very twisty.
Yes.
I want something to shock me. And it sounds like a really good mystery, and it's this author's fiction debut. So she's written a non-fiction book before, but I thought this might be very good.
Have you read her non-fiction?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I stumbled upon her on a list of, books coming out in 2019 when I was doing some research. So
yeah.
And the cover is beautiful. We'll make sure we put it up maybe on Insta stories or something.
Definitely. My first book that I've decided to choose is Recursion by Blake Crouch, which is very strange for me because it's science fiction. So definitely 2019, new year, new me. Blake Crouch wrote Dark Matter, which is a fantastic thriller sci-fi book that I read, I think, a year or two ago and just blew my mind. So this book, it starts with, what if someone could rewrite your entire life? And then it has this lady saying, my son has been erased. Those are the last words the woman tells Barry Sutton before she leaps from the Manhattan rooftop. Deeply unnerved, Barry begins to investigate her death, only to learn that this wasn't an isolated case. All across the country, people are waking up to lives different from the ones they fell asleep to. Are they suffering from false memory syndrome, a mysterious new disease that afflicts people with vivid memories of a life they never lived, or is something far more sinister behind the fracturing of reality all around them? Miles away, neuroscientist Helena Smith is developing a technology that allows us to preserve our most intense memories and relive them. If she succeeds, anyone will be able to re-experience a first kiss, the birth of a child, the final moment with a dying parent. Barry's search for the truth leads him on an impossible, astonishing journey as he discovers that Helena's work has yielded a terrifying gift, the ability not just to preserve memories, but to remake them, at the risk of destroying what it means to be human.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, so that comes out on June 11th, and I am ready for it.
Dark Matter is actually the next audiobook that I'm going to listen to because I've never read it. And I'm seeing it everywhere at the moment. I know one of the Facebook pages you and I follow, a lot of people did like a top 6, and that was in a lot of the top 6s.
Yeah, it is. It's one of, well, I don't read science fiction pretty much ever, but I decided to give it a go a year or two ago because I just heard so many good things. And honestly, it just blew my mind, and I think I gave it 5-star review, so which is very strange for me considering the genre, but I think you're gonna love it. And if you want something twisty, you got it.
Because and you're also a harsh marker,
so
5 stars from you is very good.
Yeah, especially when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi. So
I'll be curious to know, did you do the 2018 year in review in Goodreads? Because I want to know what your average, because it has your average review score. I want to know what yours was.
Oh, I'll have to have a look.
Yeah, because mine was
really pull it up.
3.9.
Right 3.9. I think mine was probably similar. How do I find it?
You'll have to find it. Year in review. So if you just type in Goodreads 2018 year in review, it should like take you to your page if you're logged in. So while you're doing that, I'll read my next one.
Okay.
So The Trial of Lizzie Borden by Cara Robertson.
Lizzie Borden's such a fascinating case.
Isn't she? True crime had a real moment in 2018, but The Trial of Lizzie Borden isn't just riding on the true crime wave. It's based on 20 years of research. So you and I both love true crime, and Lizzie Borden is absolutely fascinating. And it seems like it's going to be really thorough. And I'd really love to know, like, what made her tick. So I'm hoping it kind of goes into that.
Definitely. Oh, I'm actually really excited for that one too. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. How did you find, just going off subject quickly, how did you find the books that you are excited for that are releasing this year? Did you just go on Goodreads or do you have other sources?
In Google, I just typed in 2019 most anticipated books, and there were a few articles. So I think one was from Bustle and one was from What She Reads. And I kind of just looked through them. I actually printed them out and like highlighted a whole bunch and then added them to my Goodreads TBR. And then I had to like kind of narrow it down to my top 5.
Okay. So
what did you do?
I just went on Goodreads as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know where to find upcoming releases. I'm always like the last to know about these kind of things unless the publishers tell me. And then I feel like in the minority of people, like everyone's been so excited. I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know that was coming out. So I've just looked. Apparently I only gave Dark Matter a bloody 3.5 stars. But when I think back of it now, I read it in February 2017. But when I think back at it now, I think I would up my rating because it was such a brilliant book.
It's interesting how sometimes when you reflect on things, like that's why I think this year I'm going to wait a few days before I review. Because in the heat of the moment, you could be really annoyed by the ending of something and that could bring it down. But then once you like sit on it a bit more, you could change your mind.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And it sounds like something that you've kind of done because it's stuck with you. Hey.
Yeah, no, like I would reread it, to be honest. And I read it physically, so I'd be interested to actually read the audiobook version. From what I remember of Dark Matter, it was just one hell of a ride. It was just an extremely fascinating cavalcade of adventure, and I actually want to reread it. We could reread it together if you want. Yeah. See if I up my mark. Okay, I cannot find the year in review thingy, so if I discover that or eventually find my way there, then I will insert something later when I'm editing this. So my next book is going to be by Claire McIntosh. She's releasing a new book called After the End.
Yeah.
So this one, I couldn't find that much about what it's about. The premise on Goodreads says, Max and Pip are the strongest couple you know. Only now they're facing the most important decision of their lives, and they don't agree. As the consequences of an impossible choice threaten to devastate them both, nothing will ever be the same again. But anything can happen after the end. So that's literally the only thing I can find about this book. Then I had a look on penguinrandomhouse.com, and Leanne Moriarty, who wrote Big Little Lies and The Husband's Secret, she said it is a beautifully written novel, compelling and clever, tender and true, and you can't stop thinking about it, which kind of makes me feel like it's going to be a little bit different than her previous novels.
More character-based.
And also the cover looks so different from her other ones. It's like bright yellow, and it's got 3 birds flying around on the cover. Compared to her others.
More contemporary.
It sounds like that, but then on Goodreads it does say that it's still the thriller mystery. So I'm not sure where she's going to take it, but I'm interested. So this one, it is getting released on the 25th of June. What's your next read?
So my one is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager.
Yes, I almost picked this one.
I only wrote down like the tagline of this because, again, I couldn't find a lot of information about it. But basically it says, you've been offered a luxury apartment rent-free. The catch, you may not live long enough to enjoy it. And Riley, I only ever started reading Riley Sager this year, and he's kind of become an auto buy for me. Like, I really liked Final Girls and what is it? Last Time I Lied.
Yeah, Last Time I Lied.
And I think this one's it'll play on my fear of being trapped. Like, I'm a bit claustrophobic. I don't like to be locked in or anything like that. So I think it might be very creepy. It might be a good one for audiobook, actually.
I've enjoyed Riley Sager's books for what they are. Is it thundering where you are?
Can you hear it?
God, like it's brilliant. All right, so my next book is Stone Mothers by Erin Kelly. Erin Kelly wrote a book that I loved last year called He Said, She Said. So this book is also a thriller, obviously. The premise is you can't keep the secret, you can't tell the truth, you can't escape the past. Marianne was 17 when she fled home in Newstead, leaving behind her family, her boyfriend Jesse, and the body they buried. Now, 30 years later, forced to return in order to help care for her sick mother, she can feel the past closing around her. And Jesse, who never forgave her for leaving in the first place, is finally threatening to expose the truth. Marianne will do anything to protect the life she's built, the husband and daughter who must never know what happened all those years ago, even if it means turning to her worst enemy for help. But Marianne may not know the whole story, and she isn't the only one with secrets they'd kill to keep. Have you read anything by Erin Kelly before?
No, I haven't.
So she wrote Broadchurch, which I believe is a show on Netflix.
Yeah, I have seen that show.
Oh,
like I haven't watched it, but I've seen it pop up. But okay. I think my mum watches it and she really likes it. It's like a English procedural.
Okay. Yeah, it's I just adore her writing. I think I gave He Said, She Said 4-star review, and oh god, she's just incredibly well written. I love her work, and so I'm there for it. I do have to say I feel like the premise makes it sound like the book isn't really bringing anything new. It kind of just sounds like the average thriller premise, but she does have a way of creating something beautifully written and have a unique twist of her own. So I'm really looking forward to it.
So my next one is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. Did you come across this one?
No.
A married couple keeps their marriage alive by doing something together that's completely unheard of, killing people. And when I was reading more into it, people were saying it's got a real Dexter kind of vibe. Okay. And this is another debut novel, and I really liked the concept, and I kind of hope it's told through a shifting point of view.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Like, I'd like to hear the husband side of it and then the wife side of it. I think that'd be really fascinating.
I've literally just gone onto Goodreads and clicked want to read because that sounds awesome. And have you seen it? It's gotten a really good overall. It's average rating. It's only got 208 so far, but it's almost a full 5-star average rating on Goodreads.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's really good. From 200, that's really good.
Yeah, it's 4.16. So
wow.
I mean, I think that's pretty great.
Yeah.
Everyone knows how much I adore Dexter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this should definitely. When does that get released? It says
I feel like it was maybe March.
Yeah, 26th of March by Berkeley Books. I think that should be our March pick, or maybe the April book read of the month. That'd be awesome.
That's what I was going to say actually about our picks. Is the hard thing is the books come out at really different times.
Yeah, in different countries, don't they?
So I know 9 Perfect Strangers. That came out like a whole month or two later, and I think the one we've picked now, which is the Jane Harper one, I think that doesn't come out until March for Americans.
Oh my goodness. Maybe we need to rethink our next buddy read pick with our listeners.
Yeah, so especially because we have a lot of American listeners, and we get really excited about the Australian books when they come out, but usually it takes a while for them to come out there. So we are keeping that in mind for you guys.
Yes, so we'll probably do a post on Instagram with 2 picks, one each, and you can vote for which book you want to read.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next book is The Stranger's Child by Elle Croft.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote The Guilty Wife and The Other Sister. I haven't read The Guilty Wife yet, but The Other Sister was fantastic. Elle Croft is a follower of ours. She was born in South Africa, grew up in Australia, and moved to the UK in 2010. Yeah, she always loves and likes our Instagram posts and is very chatty to us. And one day we hope to invite her onto the podcast. So I think that we should read her next book, which gets released only at the end of next year. But the premise is Imogen Brown is a normal 16-year-old girl. She's obsessed with beach volleyball. She occasionally enjoys the company of her younger sister, Jemima. She's saving for her first car, and she feels like she doesn't belong. She thinks that her parents, Kat and Dylan, are hypocrites, playing the perfect family when she knows that they really argue all the time. What Imogen doesn't know is that they're in financial difficulty after Dylan lost a number of his construction clients. Kat is trying to work things out with him, as all she's ever wanted is a tight-knit family, the family she never had. One Friday evening, Kat and Dylan have their biggest fight yet. Dylan is snappy and out of character, saying things he doesn't mean. When Kat goes to wake Imogen the next day, she's not in her bed. Kat and Dylan call her friends, but no one has seen her since the previous day at school. Jemima had stayed at a friend's house and hadn't seen or heard from her sister since the previous morning. Imogen has gone missing.
Oh.
Yeah, so it sounds like a more domestic psychological thriller, and I love that. It's one of my favorites. Yeah. And I just really, really enjoy Elle Croft's writing. I think she's fabulous.
Well, I haven't read it yet, but I did pick up The Other Sister on your recommendation, so I ordered that from Booktopia. So it's sitting on my shelf, and my aim for the year is to read more books off my shelf.
Yes. The problem is I get given so many bloody books by the publishers, so I've now got to go get another new bookshelf because both of my bookshelves are like stacked and I've got mass amounts of books piling on the floor again. Yes, so Elle Croft is brilliant. And I wasn't actually, no offense to Elle Croft, but I wasn't excited for her book, The Other Sister. I got it from the publishers, and there was just something like the cover, to me, the cover art isn't great, but I'm so happy I gave it a go because it was absolutely brilliant.
Well, they do say don't judge a book by a cover.
Confession, I'm terrible at that.
Oh, I am too. I think cover art is such an important thing to draw people in.
Yes.
Sometimes, I'll even order books based on their cover art, or if one book in particular, I loved the American version of the cover art, and it was a fair bit steeper in price, but I knew I had to have that copy, and the Australian one was just not as nice, so I ordered the American one.
Oh, there's a book that I picked up which was fantasy called Hazelwood. Is it Hazelwood?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to see who the author is. Melissa Albert, the Hazelwood. And it's not the kind of book I would read. It's bloody fantasy and whatever. But I just fell so in love with that cover that I had to have it. It's like Illuminae by J. Christoph and Amy Kaufman. Same thing, I just had to have it. And
you didn't like Illuminae, did you?
I DNF'd. It was the first book I ever DNF'd.
Did you like the Hazelwood?
I think it's been a while since I read it, but I read the beginning and loved it, but then it kind of just went far too crazy for me, and I didn't really understand everything. But it's just because I'm not a fantasy reader, so yeah. I fully understand how some people would probably love it, but it just wasn't for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah. What's your next? This is your best for last one, right?
Yeah, so this one is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
I knew you would choose that
one. So Daisy loves adventure and all aspects of rock and roll, spending her days as a teen and young adult with some of her favorite musicians. As her own music career starts to budge, she meets Billy Dunn, the lead singer of The Six, which takes her down a path she hadn't anticipated. Making music together, the two form a connection and relationship that's unlike anything the world of rock and roll has ever seen. So, I mean, she's an auto buy for me. I love all her books. And this kind of sounds like a bit like Stevie Nicks mixed with Penny Lane from Almost Famous. Have you ever seen Almost Famous?
No.
Oh, that's a fantastic movie. I really like it. It's one of my favorites, but it's got like a real rock and roll kind of vibe to it.
Okay.
And I think it'll be similar to Evelyn Hugo, which is kind of like a fake, movie star that she writes a book about. This is a fake musician that she's kind of writing a book about, and it's getting really, really good buzz from everyone that's kind of read it. And yeah, I really like Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think she's great.
One author that we interviewed recently, she was reading it and she said that it's absolutely brilliant. I'm not sure. It was either Anna Snoekstra or I have a feeling it might have been Tessa Lunny.
Yeah. Actually, I do remember that. I think it might have been Tessa.
Tessa Lunny wrote... Yeah, she wrote April in Paris, 1921, and we do have an author interview with her in a previous episode if anyone's interested. But I'm pretty sure she said that she got an early copy of this new book by Taylor Jenkins Reid and is thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, I was very jealous.
I bet you are. I still haven't read anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've got to do. It's on my list this year.
I love it. I really like her. I think she's great. Like, her earlier stuff is very like kind of contemporary like love stories, but realistic love stories, whereas Evelyn Hugo and this one seem to be like more contemporary, but based on fictional people. I don't know how to describe it, because like Evelyn Hugo is it tells the story of this movie star of days old, kind of like a Judy Garland or a Audrey Hepburn or a Marilyn Monroe or a Greta Garbo or something like that. And she's giving her whole life story to a journalist. And this one, I don't know what kind of point of view it's taking, but it's again a fictional celebrity.
Okay.
So yeah, they're just interesting, fun.
Yeah, that book specifically has been on my list for a long time now, and I'm ashamed that I haven't read it yet. But
Evelyn Hugo?
Yes, yeah. But this year it is on my list. I think it's because I thought initially that it was supposed to be a thriller, but it's not, and so I kind of kept it on the back burner. But I've just heard such amazing things about it, so I need to just bite the bullet and pick it up.
You mentioned that, I think maybe in like one of our first episodes, you mentioned that you thought it was a thriller, and I said, remember there was that other book that came out around the same time, Evelyn Hardcastle.
Evelyn Hardcastle.
The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. And I think that confused a lot of people, because
it definitely confused me.
Evelyn Hugo popped up on a lot of people's lists, and someone had Evelyn Hardcastle on their list, and it's been changed, I think, now to the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and someone asked why. And people said probably because it got confused with Evelyn Hugo.
Yeah. And to make things even more confusing for my very just scattered brain, I just got my cousin just had a baby girl and called her Evelyn.
It must have been the name of 2018.
Yeah. Well, they call her Evie, but she's gorgeous. I haven't met her, obviously. She's in like England, but she looks pretty cute. Anyway, and another one by Taylor Jenkins Reid that you mentioned on a previous episode is that burnt toast one. What's it called?
After I Do.
After I Do, and the cover's got burnt toast on it. And I don't know, there's something about the burnt toast that looks appealing to me, so I just want to read it. So I have to pick that one up. All right, so my best for last is The Perfect Wife by J.P. Delaney. And J.P. Delaney has written The Girl Before, which I was absolutely obsessed with, and also Believe Me, which is the newest one besides this one that's coming out on the 19th of March, and I adore J.B. Delaney's writing so much. All the books I've not been disappointed. So this is a new psychological thriller. There's something I have to explain, my love, he says, taking your hands in his. That wasn't a dream, it was an upload. Abby wakes up in hospital with no memory of how she got there. The man by her side explains that he's her husband. He's a titan of a tech world, the founder of one of Silicon Valley's most innovative startups. He tells Abby she's a gifted artist, a doting mother to their young son, and the perfect wife. 5 years ago, she suffered a terrible accident. Her return from the abyss is a miracle of science, a breakthrough in artificial intelligence that has taken him half a decade to achieve. But as Abby pieces together memories of her marriage, she begins questioning her husband's motives and his version of events. Can she trust him when he says he wants them to be together forever? And what really happened to her half a decade ago? So it sounds brilliant, but what I've noticed with my picks is that a lot of them have a little bit more of like a science fiction kind of a feel to them, like The Perfect Wife and Recursion by Blake Crouch. I'm wondering if it's kind of like a turn that thrillers are taking.
Yep.
Now, I'm just wondering if that's a thing that's going to start happening now, where they become a bit more science fiction and thriller combined, and that's going to be the new thing rather than psychological thrillers that kind of swept through the bookstores last year.
Yeah, definitely. It does sound a bit that way.
Yeah, very interesting. So there are also some other books that we both wanted to just give honourable mentions to, aren't there?
Yes. I have The Suspect by Fiona Barton, which is the third book in her series. I think it's The Widow, The Child, and The Suspect, and they all have the same reporter in them. Okay. And I really liked The Widow, and The Child I didn't like as much, but I've been reading some early reviews of this one, and it's fantastic. Like, everyone's really enjoying it.
Okay. It's funny how that happens a lot, isn't it? Though, like, so the sequel is usually pretty, like, it just doesn't meet your expectations. Yeah. But come the third book, they kind of get their
especially when you really enjoyed the first one. Like, The Dry was fantastic by Jane Harper. I didn't enjoy Forces of Nature as much. And then we picked The Lost Man, which is, I don't think it's actually in that series though.
Yeah,
but
it's not related.
Everyone's raving about The Lost Man, and I read the first 2 chapters yesterday, and I'm hooked already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it set in Australia?
Yeah, it's set in Outback Australia.
Let's read the premise of that while we're here. The Lost Man by Jane Harper. I'm just going to pull that up.
Oh, and everyone, because we obviously put up a post about it, and every single person was like, I loved it.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how many people have already read it that are listeners and followers of ours.
They're beating us.
I know, like, we've fallen behind our own listeners. So The Lost Man by Jane Harper. 2 brothers meet at the border of their vast cattle properties under the unrelenting sun of outback Queensland in the stunning new standalone novel from New York Times bestselling author Jane Harper. They are at the Stockman's grave, a landmark so old no one can remember who is buried there, but today the scant shadow of casts was the last hope for their middle brother, Cameron. The Bright family's quiet existence is thrown into grief and anguish. Something has been troubling Cameron. Did he lose hope and walk to his death? Because if he didn't, the isolation of the outback leaves few suspects. Dark, suspenseful, and deeply atmospheric, The Lost Man is the highly anticipated next book from best-selling author and award-winning Jane Harper, author of The Dry and Force of Nature. So does she still have that same feel to her writing, like very atmospheric and descriptive in Australian outback?
Yeah, without giving too much away, the first kind of 2 chapters, you hear about this grave in the middle of nowhere, which is the Stockman's grave, and it kind of describes the really harsh landscape, and it right at the beginning it describes pretty much the brutal death of Cameron in the middle of the outback.
Gosh. Okay.
And I don't know if a lot of people like realize, but where Australia has areas that are very vastly populated, it also has areas that are completely barren.
You know what I actually feel? Jane Harper is going to become like the Karen Slaughter, but Australian version. Because she's got that way about her where she can make things so gritty and dark and atmospheric so quickly.
Well, I think it was was it Chris Hammer? Someone described Jane Harper and the kind of genre that she's putting out as the Australian version of Nordic noir. Whereas Nordic noir was it you or was it Chris?
Well, it doesn't matter. You can call me a best-selling author. That's great.
Like, so where like Nordic noir is like snow and cold and ice and barren, Australian is dry and just pure heat and sand and grit and barren.
Yeah, I remember saying something about, I'm pretty sure it was Jane Harper, who I said reminded me a bit of Joe Nesbo's books.
Hmm?
I think. I could be completely wrong. I can't remember. I've read too many. I read like 100 and something books last year. I think 101, 105, something like that. So yeah, I need to like just go through all the books in my head.
But I think one of our goals, like our books booze goals for this year, should be get Jane Harper on the podcast.
That would be amazing.
So we will try and
Yes.
work our background magic on that for everyone.
Yes, we're gonna reach out. We've actually put together. It's still a work in progress, the list, but we've got a list going of our authors. Like it's kind of more of a bucket list at this stage. There's some pretty out there authors like J.K. Rowling, which yeah, some are not really realistic at this stage. But you know what? If you don't ask, you'll never get.
And you know what? We've never been told no.
Exactly. Which is
So
actually fantastic. I mean, I contacted, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, Shoba Rayo, who wrote Girls Burn Brighter. I contacted her via Twitter the other day, and I was like, oh, would you ever consider coming on to a podcast and chatting about your book? Because her book is, I haven't read it yet, but I really want to. And it's just been getting raving reviews as well. And she was just like, yeah, sure, like just let me know when. So I think this is our year, Chiara.
we're going to smash it.
Yes, we just need to get our shit together now. Like, new year, it's time to focus.
So my other runners-up were An Orchestra of Minorities by, and I'm going to probably butcher this name because it's African, but I'll give it a go, Chigozie Obiama. And then A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum. And she is the woman, her bookstagram handle is Books and Beans.
Ah,
And I think
they're
it's kind
great,
of,
aren't they?
yeah, and I think it's kind of her story about like moving to New York as a minority. And then The Ash Family by Molly Dektar. And The Ash Family is about a cult, and I like books about cult.
Yes, I've never read a book about a cult, so can you recommend me your favorite?
Yeah, I'll have a look. But a good one, I haven't started it yet, but it's meant to be really good, and I think it's up your true crime alley, is Beautiful Revolutionary by Laura Elizabeth Woolett. And
I've heard
she
good
is
things.
coming on our podcast sometime probably either this month or next month. And John Purcell actually raved about her book, and I believe Anna Snoekstra also raved about it.
I love how many authors we've already had on that are like shouting out other authors. It's so beautiful.
It's such a lovely community of Australian authors. I think they all really support each other.
It is. Yeah, I'm so happy about it. All right, so I'm so surprised we did not clash in any of ours. Like we've chosen completely different ones. So I've got a few runners up. The first one I'll say is The Hiding Place by Amy Molly. Amy Molly wrote The Perfect Mother.
Okay, yeah.
And her next book comes out on June 4th, but I couldn't find much information about what it was about. Otherwise, I would have probably upped it to one of my favorites. So I can't really give you too much information about it. The next one is Sarah Pinborough, the author of Behind Her Eyes. She's coming out with a new book on the 15th of September, and I am literally frothing to get my hands on a copy of whatever it is. I don't care. Like, I would read her bloody grocery list. Then I've got BA Paris is releasing their fourth book on August the 22nd, but there's no title yet. And two more. Gillian Flynn on the 5th of September. She's got something coming out. On Goodreads, it just says book 1 of 2. So I don't know if it's going to be a little bit of a...
Because she hasn't really released anything in a while. She released The Grown Up, I think, which was like a novella.
Oh, it was brilliant. I loved it. That opening sentence of The Grown Up is probably my best opening sentence in the world.
And it'll be exciting to see kind of what she comes up with, because obviously, I mean, Gone Girl started the thriller revolution kind of. Actually, Mitch just finished. He read Gone Girl, and he wasn't that fussed on it.
What?
But I wonder if it's because, I mean, we all read it first, right? Like, it's one of the first thrillers we read. Now he's reading Girl on the Train, and he likes Girl on the Train better.
I enjoyed them both,
Yeah.
to be honest. But the opening chapter of The Grown Up. I didn't stop giving handjobs because I wasn't good at it. I stopped giving handjobs because I was the best at it. That's the opening line of her book, The Grown Up. And I was just like, all right, I'm in. This book's for me. And I read it in July 2016, according to Goodreads. I'm so glad this tracks my reading. And I gave it 5 stars. Loved it.
Okay.
And it was just out there. It was such a fantastic book. So I don't know what... I heard a while ago that she wasn't going to ever be releasing anything again and that she was done. And then she did the premise for I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, didn't she? Yeah. And I think like that opening little snippet that she did was so fantastically written, and I'm so excited for reading whatever she comes out with next. I'm going to be first in queue at that bloody bookstore.
So I read it on the 3rd of April 2016, and I rated it 3.5 stars.
Oh.
I said the only thing that frustrates me about her books are the non-endings. Tell me more.
Yeah, especially with like something like the novella, you just want it to carry on.
Novellas are really tough.
All right, and then the last book, speaking of The Girl on the Train, is Paula Hawkins. The 3rd of October, she is releasing her 3rd book, but as of now, it is untitled, and I cannot find any information on it. And I am so frustrated that it seems like a lot of authors are holding back on what they're releasing, and they're not giving us a premise, and it's just like I'm drooling.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a tactic. Keeps you interested, keeps you checking, keeps you excited.
Yeah, so we've got some good stuff, and for some reason I seem to have written down The Night Before by Wendy Walker, which gets released on the 14th of May, and Wendy Walker wrote Emma in the Night, which I really wanted to love, but I didn't, so I don't know why I wrote this down. Maybe I'm hoping that she redeems herself in this book.
I think that popped up on one of the lists that I was looking at, and I think the premise sounded really good.
Yeah.
Speaking of 2019, do you have any reading goals? Like, obviously, you have your Goodreads challenge, which I think is the same as mine, 100 books.
Yeah, I think I said 105.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure I got to 101 last year, so I just want to up it a little bit if I can. Yeah, 105. And well, I'm currently 1% on my way there.
I got to 64, I think, but most of the year I had a very tiny little baby, and they don't a lot of time for reading. But now that like they're both a fair bit older, I'm getting a lot more reading done. I still don't have internet at home, so that definitely helps because we only have the one TV and Mitch plays PlayStation, so I just go and read. Yes. So I think, like I said to Mitch, I think by the end of this week I will already have 5 books finished.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah.
So I've finished 1 book so far, and that was Educated by Tara Westover. Have you heard of it?
I'd love to know what you thought of it, because I read a review. I read a few reviews, and I don't know if I would like it.
I gave it 5 stars.
Okay.
5 goblets of wine, sorry. God, where's our books and booze lingo?
And we're so rusty.
We need to like scrape off the cobwebs, guys. So Educated, I saw Mark yesterday. We went to this place called Netherworld in Brisbane, where it's just like this dingy bar that is just full of like pinball machines and stuff. And he got there a little bit after me, and I got up to him and I had this massive smile on my face, and I was like, Mark, I just read the most amazing book. And he's like, you say that about every second book you read. And I was like, no, but this one's different. It's not a thriller. It's a memoir, and it's non-fiction. But the thing that I loved about it is that like it was so superbly written. It felt like more of a novel to me than non-fiction, and I was completely transported to Tara Westover's life. And so it broke my heart. It shocked me. It frustrated me. It angered me. And honestly, what I got from it is that it reminds us that no matter where we come from, we have the power to achieve whatever we want if we put our minds to it. And I loved it. So Tara Westover, she was from this this family of Mormons growing up in rural Idaho, and she just, her family didn't believe in the school system. They didn't believe in doctors or any kind of medicine besides herbs. And somehow she managed to break away from that life. And she went to school, she studied her fucking ass off, and she now has a doctorate. She got accepted to schools such as Cambridge and Harvard. And I think obviously there's millions of people that'll be in her situation that will never have that opportunity, and who will, even if they do, won't get to that kind of success.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like she was, it's a bit of a fairy tale story in many ways, but it's because, and if you read the story properly, it's because she really worked her ass off to get there. She's so much more successful than I am, and I had a family that was always supportive and trying to push me harder in school, but I was lazy, and that's my fault. Whereas she had a family that now has, some of them have almost disowned her because of the choices she's made and the path she's taken. But it's, she's worked so hard. She wasn't lazy, and she's now so successful. And what's even better is that from a family that grew up like this and were so underprivileged and lacked so much education, there were 7 siblings, and 3 of them now have PhDs.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a book that's just filled with motivation, and it's also, there's so many layers to it. There's so much to it, but there's a lot of abuse in it. The author sustained serious trauma at the hands of one of her brother. It's very full of violence and aggression. But I was also, and I think this is something you'd like about it too, because of Karen slaughter and stuff, I was really surprised by the level of grit and gore at certain parts of this book that I won't spoil. Okay. But because the family doesn't believe in medicine or doctors, when something goes effing wrong, they sort it out themselves, and let's just say it's not pretty. Yeah, so I found it hard to stomach, and I'm an avid thriller horror reader.
I wonder if it's because it's true.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit of that, knowing that this actually happened, and
fiction, you still have that feel of kind of fantasy to it, so it's easier, I think, to stomach. But that sounds like a really good tone to set off your year to.
Well, yeah, like that. I've put aside Beartown by Frederick Backman, which was the first book I tried to start this year, and I just couldn't get into it. Have you read it?
I have started it, but then I put it down for some reason or another.
So I do know that it's supposed to be quite heavy and about rape, Beartown, but all I got from it was a very dull story about hockey, and it was way too sports orientated for me, and just not how I wanted to start the year off. So I'll try it again eventually, but for now it just wasn't for me. And the other book I'm busy reading at the moment is The Au Pair by Emma Rue, and I spoke about that in a previous podcast episode, the South African true crime one, and I am loving it.
Well, The Au Pair is one of the next ones that I'm going to pick up. So moving on to, well, I guess we're in boozy banter now, and you were talking a bit about Mormons, so let's continue on the Mormon train, because I am listening to a fantastic podcast, and it's true crime. So it's called Cold. Have you heard of it? Yeah, it's just called Cold. So Susan Powell vanished on December 7th, 2009, and her body was never found. From the start, Utah police suspected Susan's husband, Josh. He was never arrested, and throughout the episodes, you'll find out why. So Susan and her husband, Josh, were Mormons. Both of them kept very thorough journals, because I'm not sure if you know, but Mormons are told that they should journal as much as possible. So that's why there's a lot of Mormon bloggers, because in their church, it's very important for them to record their histories.
Okay.
So they're very, they both have very detailed audio and written journals. So this podcast is full of their actual words. They read emails that Susan sent to her friends and stuff like that about her husband. And basically in her drawer at work, she wrote this letter saying, if something ever happens to me,
it was him.
It was my husband.
I've heard that.
and it's so good. Like, it's got me so hooked. I think there's 8 episodes out at the moment, and it's still going, but it's really, really, really fascinating story.
Awesome. As soon as we're done recording, I'm going to download the Cold podcast.
So other than that, I wanted to talk about 2 books. So I listened to Jane Doe on Scribe. And that's
so
one,
good.
that's one that you had recommended, and I really, really loved it. I rated it 4 goblets. It's so good, and the audiobook is really good. So, I mean, Jade's described the book before, so you can go back and listen to that if you don't remember about what it's about.
You can describe it.
Basically, this woman, her friend, commits suicide, and the fault basically lies on her boyfriend at the time. He broke up with her and broke her heart, and he was just emotionally abusive to her. And so her best friend, she believes she's a sociopath, but I don't believe she's a true sociopath. Do you agree?
I think she was told certain things, and then she fed off that, and she really believed that she was a psychopath and all those kind of things, but she wasn't.
No, because she clearly loved her best friend, who she's avenging the death of by...
And we all know psychopaths can't feel.
No, and she really cared for the man that she meets, reconnects with, Luke. And I don't believe a true sociopath would have those feelings. But it's really good. You're in her mind pretty much, and it's creepy, and she's fantastic. And then the other book was All the Ugly and Beautiful Things.
I've wanted to read that for so long.
I rated it 5 goblets.
Really?
I really, really, really liked it. It's really heavy. It's disturbing, but it's written so well. It's basically told through the points of view of many different characters in this kind of family town kind of thing. It was really, really good. I flew through it. I think it's about 400 pages, but I read it so quickly. But I said to someone, like I said to my friend Rachel, it's not a book you could ever recommend because it's so dark and the storyline is so twisted.
Yeah, it's a book by Bryn Greenwood, right? And it's quite old now.
I think maybe a few years old. And one of our listeners actually recommended it to me, rather be reading.
I have a copy of it in South Africa, and I know that my dad, he picked it up, and I think he put it down after a chapter or two because he said that it wasn't for him, and he felt that it was for younger readers. Whereas my dad reads everything. I would
say that, but I wouldn't say it's basically the story about this young girl, very young, and then her parents pretty much, they live on a meth farm, and her dad is the pretty much boss of the meth farm, and he's surrounded by bikies and stuff like that, and one of his ex-con bikies has a car accident and the daughter happens upon him, and then it kind of leads this whole life where this whole story, so you basically go through 15 years of their life together, and he's pretty much the only one looking out for her because the mum is always laid up on drugs in bed and she doesn't care and the father doesn't care. He's got 2 other mistresses, and so basically this ex-con is the only one who looks out for her, but she falls in love with him, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but it's good. I wouldn't say it's for younger readers, though. The writing's simplistic, but it's good.
Well, I found it strange because my dad normally reads anything and everything. He's the biggest reader I have ever met in my life. It's where I get it from. So I was really surprised. I think that's why, because I bought it about 2 or 3 years ago, I think, and I didn't pick it up because I was a bit worried about what he'd said, but now I've literally just gone on to audible.com.au and put it in my wish list.
I'd love to hear what the audiobook is like. But I mean, in saying that about your dad, I mean, you and I both know that we're both mood readers, and sometimes if you're not in the right mood for a book or a certain type of story, you might struggle with it.
Yeah, this is true.
I mean, one of your standouts for 2018 was a book that you didn't even want to pick up.
I was like, what? I don't want Bird Box in my life. What is this shit? And I loved it so fucking much. I felt like such an idiot.
I was like laughing when I was reading you wrote about it somewhere. And I was just laughing. I was like, I told you.
So, have you seen a Bird Box movie yet?
I have watched it, yes, have you?
No, I'm hoping because we've just had our silly, very messy, disgusting Airbnb guests leave. So I'm hoping tonight we can just chill out and have the TV to ourselves and the house to ourselves and watch Bird Box.
Yeah, I watched it here because we don't have internet at home and I have been dying to watch it. That and you, but like, I need a solid amount of time. Hopefully next Friday, the Foxtel man tells me that he is going to come and set up our NBN.
Yes, we've been watching You.
Is it good?
Oh my God. So Mark, he's not read the book. So it's really funny because he's like, oh, I bet this is going to happen. And I'm just like, shh, don't say anything.
Does Mark like it? Because I want to know if it's one I should watch with Mitch or not.
Mark said that he's enjoying it and it's enough to keep him intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously it's a series, so it's going a bit slower. So he just wants it to up its pace a little bit and for something very exciting to happen. But so I think we're 5 episodes in now, and now
is it
it's
8
like
episodes?
really, I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm kind of hoping it's longer because I don't know if I can live without you anymore. Like,
is he good as Joe? I imagine he'd be really good.
I wasn't really sure at first, and yeah, he's brilliant. And also, what's her name?
Shay Mitchell.
Shay Mitchell, as Peach. I didn't see it, but she's fantastic. I think her acting skills have gone up by 1,000,000%.
Because she's pretty awful in Pretty Little Lies.
Yeah, no, she's really, really improved. She plays, obviously, Peach, an absolute bitch from hell, and she does it so well.
As soon as I watch it, we'll have to hop on and record an episode.
Yeah, we should probably stop talking about it so we can save that for a future episode. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep gushing, and you need to catch up first.
I know, bloody internet. So the last thing I was going to mention is yesterday, well, it was mine and Mitch's 5th wedding anniversary, which I can't believe. It's been 5 years, like it doesn't feel like it. But my sister got us tickets to All You Need Is Love, which is all the Beatles songs, and it was performed by 4 talented musicians in front of an orchestra and a band. And it was so good. Like, if it ever comes, apparently they do it every year. So, I mean, if it ever comes to Brisbane or wherever people live, go see it because it was so good. The last song they played was Hey Jude, which is one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs. And, like, everyone stood up and they were singing and it was just beautiful. It was a really nice atmosphere.
Oh, yeah. I love things like that. So, got to do stuff like that more often.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of really cool things lined up this year. Just in the next 2 months, we're seeing Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, nice.
Which is going to be really exciting. And Florence and the Machine.
Oh, I love Florence.
Yeah, so I'm really, really excited for those 2 bands. And then Mumford & Sons is coming, but I know...
Oh, we're going.
Oh, stop. I can't afford it.
Yeah, we're going. We bought tickets a while ago, so we're going with 2 of our very good friends, and I'm very excited. I think it's in 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah. Well, I've seen them live before, and I literally spent the entire concert in tears because I couldn't believe I was finally seeing them live. Like, I was so happy because my first book, which is off the market now, I don't have it out anymore, but every chapter was titled by a song, and the main song, the biggest chapter of the book, was titled by I Will Wait by Mumford & Sons. So when that song came on, I was an absolute blubbering mess. And I just need to go back and experience that again, but I know that we can't afford it, so... We've got some pretty great things coming up. We've got Red Hot Chili Peppers, Florence and the Machine. We're going to South Africa for a wedding, and then we're heading to Madagascar for an incredible trip. So I can't complain. Yeah, I can't complain.
Forward to.
Yeah, but I am still very envious. And if you decide to pick up the phone and give me a call when Mumford & Sons is live, that's great.
Okay. I'll FaceTime you.
I'll be waiting.
I will wait.
Thanks for listening to Books and Booze. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter under BooksBoozePod or email us at hello@booksboozepod.com. We're also on Patreon if you'd like to support our podcast by donating as little as $2 a month. If you're looking for a free way to support us, then you can leave us a review on Apple iTunes or Stitcher. It really helps other people find us. As always, it's been a pleasure. I'm Jade, and you can follow my Instagram at boho_bookworm, and Chiara is my co-host, and you can find her under bookish.kiki. Until next time, happy reading and drink responsibly.